morning, good afternoon, good evening, football fans. I'm Ryan Cato here with Hunter Thompson, Trevor McVeigh, and if you're listening right now, then you know that we are the Backups, a football podcast. We're sitting on the sideline holding the clipboards because we're not quite good enough to make it out there on the field. We're great analysts though. That's why you should be listening to our podcast. We normally go straight into news, but luckily this week, and because our news normally does consist of injuries and COVID results, luckily I don't think we have any major injuries this week. I know a couple people went down, like Debo Samuel, Mike Williams had a minor injury, but nothing too big, and so we wanted to go. As we do have 3 weeks of the season left, we're getting down to crunch time. We wanted to talk about the playoff picture. And Trevor, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that, getting into the nitty-gritty of this season.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Let's just get right into it. So this year, just going to remind everybody the playoff picture is different. There's actually 7 teams instead of just 6. So that number 1 seed is the coveted position going into the playoffs because that's the only seed that gets a bye. So the 2 seed plays the 7 seed and so forth. So right now the AFC is kind of owned by like 3 teams, like Chiefs, Steelers, and Bills are kind of battling out for that top seed right now. And then it's kind of the rest. Just the division leaders are Chiefs, Steelers, Bills, and Titans is your 4 seeds, top 4 seeds. Then we jump into the NFC, and it's kind of a 3-team race, with one of them being kind of shocking to me. Actually, 2 of them being a little shocking. You got the Packers and Saints tied for first, but I believe the Packers have the tiebreaker against the Saints, I believe. Then you got the Rams at 3, which is unbelievable. Everyone picked them, in my opinion, for them to finish last in that division. I mean, granted, San Francisco wasn't healthy this year, which might have made a little bit of a difference. But, I mean, from last all the way to first right now is fantastic. And then you got, the NFC East. I mean, they're the joke of the playoffs. 6 and 7 Washington team as the 4 seed would right now play the Seahawks. And the Seahawks are the one that could battle for the 3 seed because they have the same record as the Rams. But the Rams have the tiebreaker. And then your final 2 wildcard spots are Buccaneers and Cardinals. So that's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, so I think the big story of the AFC right now would be that Pittsburgh is slipping from their spot. Like you said, the 1 seed is the coveted position in this year's playoffs because the bye only goes to the 1 seed. There's no bye to the 2 seed this year. And Pittsburgh has lost 2 in a row and has lost their 1 seed in the AFC to the Kansas City Chiefs. And so I think that's a big story going into the playoffs because right now Pittsburgh has to play Miami, who just gave a hell of a game to Kansas City. Obviously that can change, but that's huge. And also in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens currently out of the playoffs. They're right there on the bubble at 8-5. But after a year after going 14-2, they've really slipped in that AFC North division. So 2 very interesting storylines I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Yeah, Pittsburgh losing the number 1 seed is monumental for them. Any shot they had at making the Super Bowl is pretty much gone if they don't get the number 1 seed. A team like Pittsburgh really needs that extra week to honestly rest and recover because of just how their season's gone, how beat up they've been and everything. And if you have to go in and play a team like Miami in round 1, even if you beat Miami, they're going to give you a hell of a game. And Brian Flores coached that Miami team to play physical, to play hard, and they play with a lot of passion out there. And I don't know even if Pittsburgh wins, that game would be it would take too much out of the tank, I think, for Pittsburgh to even have a shot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it also you got it, Trev.
Yeah, I was just going to mention Miami. I was like, if Brian Flores isn't a finalist for Coach of the Year after they got the 5th overall pick, get Tua, and now they're 8-5, and they're making a strong push for the playoffs right now, that is fantastic to me. And then the Steelers, like y'all mentioned, they dropped 2 straight games, And I mean, the Ravens and Browns aren't too far behind, and the Browns are a little hot right now. So it could get a little, like I said, a little crunch time action going on the last 3 weeks. And it still amazes me that Baltimore is not a lock-in playoff team after they went 14-2 last season. They've just really struggled.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also agree on your point, Hunter. That Miami would take a lot out of that Pittsburgh team. I mean, you want to talk about a physical team that that is led by their defense, and the Steelers had to play Washington 2 weeks ago and lost to them because of that. I mean, the Steelers really rely on their defense, and I think Miami has shown that their defense is strong enough to compete with the best. And so that's a little scary as a first round matchup right now, going into the playoffs. And then obviously the NFC, we don't even have to mention sometimes, but like the NFC East, I mean, who the hell knows what's going to happen on that side of the NFL. Rams looking like a strong team, along with their defense in the NFC also. So I don't know if there's any NFC storylines we wanted to hit on, but
I think the biggest storyline is just the NFC West. I mean, Rams and Seahawks already mentioned it. And Cardinals. I mean, Cardinals are 2 games back, but the Rams and Seahawks are both tied 9-4 for the one seed in their division. And I think that's going to come down to the wire. I personally, I'm gonna take Rams to take that division because they've been just a hotter team here lately. And then Saints, in my opinion, desperately need Breeze back. They're just not the same team without him. But with his recovery, I'm not sure when he'll be back. I mean, he was hopefully looking at Week 15 when they play Kansas City, which could be a huge game to finish off their season. But I don't think he's going to be back for it personally. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so with Drew Brees, I think they're going to hold him off until he's 100% healthy, which might have to be the playoffs. The thing with Brees is he's not really going to come in rusty because I'm sure he's just going to step in and play like Drew Brees does in in the current era of Drew Brees, which is 250 yards, 70% completion percentage, a couple touchdowns.
all to Michael Thomas.
Call it a day. Yeah, pretty much. Just call it a day at that, But I don't see the need in sending him out there to play Kansas City when, when you look at the schedule, Green Bay has the easier shot at getting the 1 seed. So I don't know why you would. I don't know. I don't see them being able to keep up with Green Bay in the race for the 1 seed.
They also have a 2-game buffer on the Buccaneers, and they have I think they swept them this year, so they win the tiebreaker if they have the same record. So I mean, they do have some buffer if they do want to let Breeze wait a little bit.
Yeah, I think if the Saints are smart, they just keep Breeze out of it. Taysom has been playing fine. He's been perfectly serviceable. And so, obviously we had a bit of a hiccup with the Eagles game, but overall, I mean, it's not been a terrible run for Taysom Hill. And so if you want to sit back and just wait till you get into the real nitty gritty of it, I say just wait. If I'm making that decision. But I know we did talk about a couple bubble teams, including one of our favorites in the NFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, who are currently missing the playoffs to Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns, the 9-3 Cleveland Browns, right? 9-3 or maybe 9-4. I don't know.
9-4.
But I know, Hunter, you want to talk about that as we move into game of the week because we had a hell of a game on Monday Night Football last night.
Oh my God, that was a wild game. Lamar looked absolutely horrid in the first half, passing wise. But then in the second half, he came back and just started dropping dimes all across the field and playing well. It was an incredible game. But it went all the way down to the end of the fourth quarter. Baltimore won by 5 after a go-ahead field goal by Justin Tucker with like 5 seconds left, and then Cleveland doing Cleveland things and having that safety given up.
Yeah.
And costing bettors to spread. Because the spread on that game was 3. And, well...
and here we are.
Cleveland did Cleveland things. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those games, like, I had different thoughts about it throughout the entire game. Because in the first half, I was like, Lamar does not look good. And then he had the mysterious cramps, in quotes here, people. And he actually, he just had to go take a shit. Like, we saw that run, Lamar. That was not a calf cramp. I've had calf cramps. I can't move that well. You just had to go take a shit, bro. That's it. Just admit it. Tell the people what we want to hear. But then, I don't know. I thought Baker looked good. I think the Browns are really missing OBJ in this game. None of their guys could really get off the press coverage that Baltimore was throwing out. And it makes me wonder if they're going to draft a receiver or look to deal OBJ in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns' top receiver was Kareem Hunt, 6 receptions for 77 yards, followed closely by Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is no longer bound by our favorite college QB, Shea Patterson. But, 3 receptions, 74 yards for the rookie there. But, it's 2 teams that were pretty much, dominated by their run game. 4 running touchdowns for the Browns, 5 for the Ravens, both, receiver needy teams. And, you even look at the Ravens receiving stats, and Mark Andrews is the only person doing anything. I mean, Marquise Brown, I don't even want to call him Hollywood anymore. But he had 2 receptions, 1 big reception for a touchdown. But aside from that, like, that team is receiver needy for sure. And I know we all talk about that come draft season. But yeah, it was quite the game. Really came down to the wire. I mean, a huge fourth quarter. The Browns scored 22 points in the fourth quarter. So wild to me, but
yeah, from what I saw of that game, Baltimore's offensive line in that first half played like ass. I mean, the Cleveland defensive line is really good. So I can't blame them too much. But Lamar, he had to get out of the pocket a lot. But luckily, it's Lamar, and the homeboy can scramble. And there was nobody stopping that man in the first half. And even the second half, he ran his ass off. And that's what took this game, in my opinion. His elite ability to scramble really carried them this week. Also carried him to the bathroom. Baker Mayfield looked pretty good. Accurate. He had that one bonehead interception that was dumb. But I still think Nick Chubb's the star there. When Nick Chubb does well, the Cleveland does well. I know they lost this week, but they put up 42 points against Baltimore. But overall, I would be happy if I'm Cleveland, and I'd be happy but nervous if I'm Baltimore. Because Lamar is that offense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's obviously, like I said, something that they're going to have to address in the offseason. And I did mention Mark Andrews was the top receiver on that team. And if we want to talk about another team with a top receiving tight end, I mean, come on with the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce, currently the leader in receiving yards for the NFL. He is up 70 yards with 3 games to play. He'd be the first ever tight end to lead the league in receiving yards, and he needs 127 yards to tie the record by a tight end, which he could do in 1 game. And you want to talk about that game real quick. Travis Kelce, 8 receptions for 136 yards and a touchdown in a close game, though. The Chiefs taking the dub 33-27 over the Miami Dolphins in my game of the week. I was very impressed with that Miami defense. 33 points. Okay, it sounds like a lot. And Patrick Mahomes still had close to 400 passing yards. However, 3 interceptions by the Miami defense. And I mean, they were putting the pressure on Patrick Mahomes. I think Hunter, you said something about it in the group. I can't remember exactly what you said, but something to the tune of Brian Flores kind of perfected what he's seen in the past couple weeks. And so I was very excited to see maybe a team like Miami could be a dark horse candidate in the playoffs when the Chiefs have looked pretty much unstoppable, aside from one loss this season. So big game though in on Sunday afternoon, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Trevor, go right ahead.
Okay, I got it. So the first half, Kansas City kind of ran away with it. They ended up being up 28-10, and it was not looking good for Miami. And when they came back into the third quarter, I mean, Miami brought it to them. I mean, they got like they said, got the pressure on Mahomes. He made mistakes. They capitalized on errors, and they completely shut them out in the third quarter and allowed Miami to fight back in to this game, and then ended up making it close. Kansas City ended up scoring a late TD, I think, by oh gosh, my mind went blank. Tyreek, I think. No, he didn't score in the fourth. I can't remember. I'm sorry, but ended up it was a really good game. I will say Tua, who's known for his accuracy, did make some questionable throws this game that I watched. And a lot like the one that he threw that ended up getting picked off by Tyrann Mathieu. It was double coverage with a wide receiver who didn't really get up for the ball either. Well, yeah, it got knocked out by the corner and the safety intercepted it. It was not a good pass. And then his touchdown pass to Mike Gesicki I thought was really risky for how light he threw the ball. But overall, I mean, he did what he was asked to do and made it really close with the Super Bowl favorites this week, and I thought that was a really solid game for them and a good resume booster for Miami, even though they lost.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what teams do, because like over the past couple of weeks, we've seen teams start to make Patrick Mahomes look somewhat human. Oakland did it early in the season. Weirdly enough, don't really know how Oakland did it. Or sorry, Vegas, the Las Vegas Raiders. But then last week, we saw the Broncos do it. They made Mahomes look human. And then this week, we saw Brian Flores kind of perfect it, or at least make Mahomes look as human as someone can. So it's going to be really interesting to see how teams going forward take what Miami did and use that to try to stop Mahomes and the rest of that high-powered Chiefs offense.
It's scary to talk about, I think, and we can move on to our next game of the week soon. But I think it's scary to talk about, making Mahomes look human when he throws for 400 yards, and the Chiefs had 30 unanswered points in the second and third quarters. I like that. I think that's so scary to me. It just shows how much power Mahomes really has on that offense. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Not to mention his targets with Kelsey, Hill, etc. So, but you did mention just last week, the Denver Broncos were able to hold Patrick Mahomes to just 22 points, much less than Miami this week. And I know, Trevor, you want to talk about the Denver Broncos again this week when they faced Carolina.
Yeah, this was actually a pretty fun game. I will commend both sides of the ball, their offensive coordinator. They both called fantastic games. Drew Lock, who's had a kind of a rocky season this year. I mean, he did have the shoulder problems, but he's picked it up the last couple of weeks. He threw for 280 and 4 TDs, and I mean, he was making the touch passes, the accurate passes down the sideline, tight windows, the deep ball. He was on Sunday. I was very impressed with him. Jerry Jeudy looked good. Just all the way they schemed everyone open against this Carolina team was fantastic. I thought that was a really well called game for them. And then on the defensive side, they got pressure on Teddy B. a pretty good big. He ended up getting sacked 4 times. But for Carolina, Teddy Bridgewater, we can all agree that he's kind of limited as far as his arm and passing ability. But man, Joe Brady and him are on the same page because he knows like 15 to 25 yards down the field, that's where Teddy's sweet spot is. And he was making the Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel. He was picking the defense apart just at that 15 to 20 yard range the entire game. And then when that wasn't there, Mike Davis was either carrying the offense or Teddy B was making it happen with his feet. I was very impressed with both offenses, and ended up going back and forth, but Denver did get the win, and I thought that was a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a connection for real? Like Teddy Bridgewater and Robbie Anderson this season have really connected. Obviously, Robbie Anderson's first season in Carolina, but 12 targets in this game versus Denver, 8 receptions for 84 yards. You're right. I mean, that 15-ish yard range, it's right there that Teddy B was looking really good. And obviously Joe Brady was calling it pretty well too, schemed it up to take advantage of that defense. But an excellent game to watch. I was pretty impressed with how both teams played for sure. Yeah. Either way, I didn't know if I was trying to leave some dead air for the boys, but if the boys don't want dead air, the boys don't want any dead air. We can talk about coaching. Fine, we can talk about coaching. But...
I was just gonna talk about Matt Rule for a minute. Talk about how good of a coach he is.
God damn, talk about Matt Rule, please.
I know we say this like every time Matt Rule gets brought up, but what he's been doing with that Carolina team is truly just incredible. And I'm really curious to see what the long-term picture for Carolina looks like. I thought they were going to potentially be shooting for the number 1 pick this year. Them and the Jets and Jacksonville, I thought, were my top 3. And 2 of those 3 were right. And then the other's Carolina, who've been competitive in every game. So it's cool to see.
Yeah. And I mean, Matt Rule obviously coming in his first season, he's really looking to build up that Carolina team. Some great picks from Carolina. They got Derek Brown, is that correct, in the first round?
Yep.
And then the Jeremy Chin pick, obviously. I mean, he's in defensive rookie of the year conversation. So a few really good pickups. Obviously, bringing Joe Brady was a great idea, and suddenly you got yourself a football team. I think that they could really start becoming competitive as Drew Brees and Tom Brady kind of phase out the end of their careers out of Tampa and New Orleans. But there are several teams that I think that we could see bring in new coaches who are hoping to do the same thing coming up this next season. Obviously, the Jets are one of them, but I know we've got a fairly sizable list of teams with possible vacancies. And Hunter, if you'd start us off, I'd love that.
Okay, so just clarify. Do you want me to go through the list or just pick a random team on the list?
Just talk about what you want to talk about, big boy.
All right, man.
I know you got some coaching to talk about.
All right, so this season we're looking at 8 vacancies. What happened with my audio? There we go. Okay, cool. Atlanta's open, Detroit's open, Jacksonville's probably going to be open, Houston's open, Jets are probably going to be open, Chargers probably be open, and I feel like I might be forgetting one that might be open. Either way, all these like head coaching vacancies are opening up, right? And it's really interesting to like kind of like pick and like picture who's going to be at what team. Obviously, everybody wants their team the best guy, right? But that's not. I was listening to Steve Weish today talk on one of his podcasts about how the top 2 names for every team are obviously Eric Bieniemy and Robert Saleh are the top 2. But then he said after that is where things get a little weird and finicky. Because like when you look on Twitter, you'll see all these guys like Arthur Smith, Brian Dable, Todd Bowles, Brian Leftwich, getting these, shout outs and like they should be the next head coaching candidates, whatever. But NFL GMs and owners view it in a different light. And I just found that so interesting that we have such like a view on the hotshot coordinator, but a lot of these guys prefer the more experienced CEO type vibe that the head coaches give off. And like a couple of those guys on the list, we see like names like Marvin Lewis. That's why he keeps popping up. Why Jim Harbaugh's still floating around. And stuff like that is just so interesting to me. And I think one of those guys would be the perfect fit for a team like the Jets, who need everything and need all the help they can get. Sorry, I'm ranting. You guys, please say something.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, obviously, us on NFL Twitter are gonna have different ideas about the head coaching vacancies than the actual NFL executives, and obviously, like you had sent us this earlier this week, but Connor Rogers on the Lefko Show talked about that. I mean, obviously, he has been hearing different names than we're going to be talking about on Twitter all the time. One of my favorites that he actually brought up, and somebody that I've actually been doing a lot of studying on, is Matt Campbell. And I like he is a coach at Iowa State. And has really turned that program around. I mean, he started off 11-14 in his first two seasons, but once he kind of got going, they've been 28-18 cents. I mean, just a clear like culture builder, traditional like spread offense type guy, and I think that he would be a good candidate for moving up in the league, from college. And I think a lot of the time, college candidates don't really get talked about as much as coordinators, like you said, Dable, Bieniemy, etc. So it'll be interesting to see where all these NFL teams are going to go. I know that you guys both have favorites for the Falcons job, if you want to share those, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little biased. I think Atlanta is the best job available right now currently. As far as a roster standpoint, I will say cap space is one of the worst as far as openings. But, I mean, you've got Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, a bunch of young players on the offense and defense that can make plays. Just the cap space is terrible. And I think with a good, solid head coach who wants to build a consistent culture, I would be very happy with. And I want an offensive coach personally. We've had Mike Smith and Dan Quinn the last 10 plus years, and our defense hasn't been good. So I would be fine with getting an offensive head coach with an OC, really get this offense clicking, and either be like a shootout team or get a defensive coordinator who knows the X's and O's and just gets the guys on the same page as far as communication. So bring in, like the Rams did it when they hired Sean McVay. They brought in Wade Phillips, and he ended up solidifying their defense and made them solid enough to where they were Super Bowl contenders for a couple of years. And they will be this year. I mean, without Wade Phillips, we'll see. But I think the most appealing job is, if it opens up, will be the Chargers, I think. Just because they've got a young QB on that rookie contract, which is so sweet and juicy now. They've got a solid roster. Defense, when it's healthy, is one of the best in the league. And their cap space is one of the best out of the openings as well. So if I were a head coach and I had that as my option and a GM, I'm picking the Chargers. One of the ones that's not that great to me might not be Detroit. I mean, Matthew Stafford's kind of aging. I don't think the roster's that great. But it has had some moments this season where they look pretty good. And then, I mean, the Jets, I mean, the only thing they've really got going for them is cap space and Trevor Lawrence going into the next season. So it'll be really interesting. I personally am an Eric Bieniemy guy and an Arthur Smith guy. And if not an offensive guy, go let Robert Saleh, which would be nice. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I do think Atlanta is the most appealing job. But I think the second most appealing job is actually Jacksonville.
Agree.
They're sneaky. Yeah, they
because
are.
Jacksonville has all this weird talent hidden on roster. And then the ownership is a little bit more of a wild card, but you have the number 2 overall pick. You have a ton of cap space, and you're in a division where most of the division is very volatile. It's constantly changing. The AFC South is one of the most polarized divisions of the past decade, where they just keep flip-flopping winners and everything. It's so strange to me. But I think if you could get a good coach in there, then you will see Jacksonville start to emerge as a AFC contender. One thing that I did find really interesting about what Connor Rogers said the other day was a lot of times these head coaching hires are more looking at oh shit, I lost my train of thought. I don't remember where I was going with this. Shit.
You got it, boy.
I had it, then I lost it. Somebody take over.
You said that they're more looking at, and then you just lost it. It's all right.
I don't remember what it was going off something Trevor said, and I don't remember what it was.
Well, Trevor, what the hell did you say? I mean, he talked about Arthur Smith. He talked about he talked.
He talked about repeat my whole rant.
We talked about like a young. He talks about a young head coach with an older, more experienced coordinator, if that's what you meant. Either way,
young QB in a rookie deal with Justin Fields. Is that what maybe?
No, I'm sure it'll come back to me later, and I'll probably tweet. I'll probably tweet my thoughts later.
You'll probably tweet it, I'm sure. It's a shit show in this middle segment today. We don't remember anything, but one of the most interesting things and one of the most interesting looks I think in the NFL right now is Joe Brady. Connor Rogers did say on that same podcast that you were talking about that Joe Brady probably needs another year, and I probably agree. I don't know. It's kind of fast to go from LSU OC to Carolina OC straight into a head coaching job. But we talk about as much Matt Rule as it is Joe Brady kind of making the wheels move with the talent he has on that offense in Carolina. So I think maybe not this year, but next year could be a year that Joe Brady kind of moves into a head coaching job. But I mean, I think that a team like the Jets has kind of made a mistake like that before, where they went with like a more conventional, like experienced head coach, or a more conventional experienced coach rather, and didn't hire the Matt Rule, didn't hire the Cliff Kingsbury, didn't hire, one of those, and they got screwed for it. So maybe 100%. That could be a hire, if they take the chance on the younger guy. I think it's an interesting thought at the very least.
I mean, as a Falcons fan, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think I would hate it if we signed Joe Brady as our head coach. Just because he seems to be an offensive guru, and they seem to be working wonders in the NFL right now. I mean, it's obviously more of an offensive league, in my opinion. So if his philosophy actually worked in Atlanta, I don't think I'd be that mad. I would just be worried about what would happen, like what would his staff be, and what kind of defense will we have. But I mean, if you've got the roster to take the chance, I mean, the Chargers, their defense is already pretty solid, but if you can add Herbert and Joe Brady and make that offense just even more dynamic, that could be a pretty scary duo. But I do agree he probably does need to wait another year, in my opinion.
Yeah. I do want to talk about one more possible job that could be an opening this coming year, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. I know Doug Peterson obviously is a Super Bowl winner, but that's been kind of a tough job over the past couple years, but especially this year. The Eagles have been absolutely horrendous, and we're at one point the best team in the NFC East. Have now fallen to nearly the worst. Do you guys think that job will open up?
I think the GM job would open up before the head coaching job. I think Howie Roseman is really digging himself into a major hole as the general manager there. And I think that you can make the argument for Peterson, especially if he comes on these next couple weeks and like they start winning a few more games, that you can make the argument, oh, the season was on Wentz and on Roseman for giving me terrible talent. I think there's a way Peterson could figure out a way to save his job. I don't know if that's the right move, but I think that one is a lot more up in the air than most.
Yeah, I think Peterson's probably 50-50 for me. I think a lot of it may depend on how they finish the season, especially with Jalen Hurts' experiment. I mean, but if you look at it coming into this year, I mean, their offensive line was banged up, their weapons were banged up, defense got banged up. So they've had the injury bug this year, but they've also had such a bad division that they should at least be competitive in it right now, and they're not. I mean, maybe Jalen Hurts just wins out to finish the season, pulls like a Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't really expect him to. And I just don't know what's going to go on in Philly. I don't know, like Dan Quinn in 2017. I know it's all Falcons reference. I'm sorry. We had a lot of injuries that season, or 28. No, it's 2018, I think, or one of the two. I can't remember. We had a big injury bug, and we had a terrible season. And he ended up being retained for the next season, but we ended up firing a couple coordinators. So maybe Philly has that kind of situation. But overall, I would be very disappointed as a Philly fan with Peterson and the organization.
Yeah, I mean, for Peterson's sake, I'm hoping that Jalen Hurts comes in and Wentz really was the issue. You know, maybe Hurts comes in and Hurts it looks as good as he did in that game against the Saints. And I mean, if they can add a couple of weapons, kind of get that offense moving again, beef up the line and add maybe a Jamar Chase, a Jalen Waddle in the top of that draft, we could see some better play from Philly next year. And speaking of Jalen Hurts, we are going to take a quick break before backup of the week, which will be our next and final segment. So I hope that you stick with us because it's been a little bit of a shit show, just a little bit, not a big one, just a small one, just like a small, like little rabbit poops. You know, when you poop,
kind of like a Lamar poop,
like the Lamar poop. He was dribbling in his drawers. But we will be right back after this quick message.
Hello, football fans. Ryan Cato here. Just wanted to stop in and say that this episode is brought to you by Drew Lock himself. If you're looking for a quarterback to have a 149 rating against the Panthers this last week, but be averaging a QBR of 50.2 on the season, look to Drew Lock, the most inconsistent quarterback in football. Right back to you.
Welcome back, football fans. Ryan Cato back at it. We were on break. We just finished talking about Lamar shitting himself. So I think it's about time to get right back into it. Backup of the week. We were just talking about Doug Peterson and his job security. I did forget to mention he was asked about it 2 weeks ago, I think. And he said it's something he doesn't want to think about right now. So I think he might be a little nervous. But you know who doesn't have to be nervous? The Eagles' new starting QB, Jalen Hurts. So you had 1 week to give him backup of the week, Trevor, and you did it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, Jalen, I bet he was nervous coming into this game because it was his first NFL start against the number one seed in the NFC. Luckily, it was at home against New Orleans, but overall, I was pretty dang impressed. I will say their offense was very college-like. It was a lot of like QB design runs, and which I let Jalen shine. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of his running plays ended up being huge plays as far as owning this game. I mean, he really managed it. I will say he didn't really throw the ball downfield that often. He did have one throw to Alshon Jeffrey that was a little bit deeper. That he threw it back shoulder, front pylon. That Alshon made a great play to come back and grab it. But I do think it was a little underthrown. I think he kind of missed, and Alshon just made up for it. And trashed Marshawn Lattimore, completely blew his coverage. But overall, I mean, right before the half, with like a minute 15 left, he gained like 60 plus yards off scrambling and gets it down to like the 12. And kicker comes up with like a 22-yard kick, and he completely shanks it. It was horrible. I had to mention that. It was terrible. But overall, from his performance, I mean, he was hitting a lot of like shorter routes, a lot of out routes, a lot of slants. But overall, he managed this game well. Miles Sanders was the star. He carried him this week. But Jalen Hurts had over 100 yards rushing, which was kind of the story for him for this game, and I was very impressed. Hopefully, he can ride it out for the rest of the season. I mean, he's not going to face very many defenses, in my opinion, that are as good as the Saints this year. So hopefully, it's even farther up from here.
Yeah, the main thing I was going to mention was the 100+ rushing yards for Jalen Hurts this week, 18 rushes. I mean, that's huge. And I do want to mention too, the Eagles offensive line, who I was talking mad shit about earlier, didn't allow a single sack on Jalen Hurts. So obviously that's a product of a lot of those QB design runs and those running plays to Miles Sanders, like you were talking about. But no sacks allowed on his 30 passing attempts in this game. So I think that's big. And Jalen Hurts hopefully has a bright future ahead of him in Philadelphia. Our next two are not quite quarterbacks, but Jalen Hurts might as well have been one of these this week. And Hunter, I would love for you to talk about your backup of the week at the running back position.
Yeah, so my backup of the week was one of the guys that helped spearhead this Baltimore rushing attack this week. I picked Gus Edwards, who had a 2-touchdown performance to help the Ravens beat the Browns 47-42. Gus Edwards only had 7 carries, but 2 of those were touchdowns. Obviously, JK got more of the workload, but I think Gus Edwards did a fantastic job of stepping in and replacing Mark Ingram's production, since we just did not see him yesterday. I think Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins should be the pairing going forward to man this Ravens attack.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we talked about earlier in Baltimore, Baltimore, Cleveland, it was rushing both ways. Just a huge game from the Baltimore rushing attack led by Gus Edwards. So big deal this week. I also had a running back this week that was kind of left in the dust. I do want to talk about him a little bit before I really say his name, but he was picked in the 3rd round. He got let go during training camp by the Las Vegas Raiders. Used to be a quarterback at Kentucky, went into the draft as like a running back wide receiver hybrid. And he's had a hell of a journey to get here. And that's Lynn Bowden of the Miami Dolphins. Finally got his touches this week. After everybody, I guess, on Miami's running back team is hurt. I don't know how that happens. It's literally everyone. Myles Gaskin, DeAndre Washington. They had to let Jordan Howard go because he sucks. Savon Ahmed is hurt. Like, they're all hurt. But Lynn Bowden came in, had an excellent game, mainly in the passing game. I wanted to pull up his stats, but my Bleacher Report is being a little shitty right now. But here we go. Lynn Bowden with 7 catches and 82 yards on 9 targets. Also had a passing attempt. It didn't go anywhere, but I was just happy to see him playing football after quite the tumultuous journey back into a starting pro squad on the Dolphins from the Raiders. So big week from him and the Miami team. If you guys have any words about Lynn Bowden, about any more backups you wanted to highlight, or just any final words, I'd love to hear them from you as we're coming down to the wire for this episode. And you guys can take it away.
Yeah, I'll start. I will mention with Gus Edwards, he's kind of been their little gem, their kind of rock as far as their running back depth the last few seasons. I mean, obviously Mark Ingram's kind of carried it last season, and he was there before then, but he's always been a pretty consistent running back for them. I don't think he'd be that great as a lead role personally, but as far as a compliment back, I think he's perfect for that. Him and J.K. Dobbins should be a really nice duo for them going into the future. Adding in Lamar's rushing too. I mean that's going to be one hell of a running team. And then with Lynn Bowden, I think didn't he get traded for like a 5th-round pick? I didn't think he got cut. I could be wrong.
He was a 4th-round pick, and he got traded for a 5th-round pick.
That's what I thought.
Or
I do.
5th and 6th, whatever. He got drafted last draft in 1 round, and then Miami traded this year's pick in the round later for Bowden.
Yeah. From what I remember about training camp news is the Raiders really wanted him to be a running back type, which I don't think is his absolute strong suit. I feel like he's more dynamic as a wide receiver. And another thing for Miami to get on their resume, they bring him in as more of a wide receiver, and he absolutely balls out, him and Tua. So just a fantastic pickup for them. I think they won that trade pretty handily. I mean, unless the Raiders get some kind of god in the 5th round next season or 6th round, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I said before. I mean, very dynamic in the passing game, and hopefully they'll continue to use him in that way going into next season. If they figure out that backfield, if you have any closing words, Hunter, hit me with them.
Yeah. So obviously, thank you all for listening to the podcast. I still can't remember where I was going last segment, and it's been eating at me since.
We'll tweet it. We'll tweet it.
I'm sure I'll tweet it. Speaking of which, follow us on Twitter. It's all in our Backups Twitter profile, which is at the Backups Cast. Yeah, just thank you all for listening. And fuck Taysom Hill.
Fuck Taysom Hill. We're on the fuck Taysom Hill gang this week after he lost to somebody that Trevor called a younger Taysom Hill, Jalen Hurts. We said we weren't going to bring it up, but I brought it up.
Give me Jameis. Give me Jameis.
When Jameis comes back, the world is going to burn. The Saints are going to lose out. They're going to be 10-6. They're going to be the wild card.
But he's going to throw for 500 yards, damn it.
Yeah, I swear.
500 interceptions.
Hey, a little bit of both. Nothing wrong with that. Thank you for listening. If you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, you can see our faces. You can't see mine right now because my internet's a little slow, but that's how it is in this bitch of a world. And hopefully we'll be getting some stuff up there soon. I really want to do some mock drafts. If anybody here is interested, just you or me or me and Trevor.
I'm always down.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if anybody wants to do some Skype mock drafts, I'd be so down. Hopefully we'll be posting those on our YouTube. I would also love to do some film sessions on the YouTube if anybody's interested. So anybody who's listening to the podcast, even if anybody wants to like anybody, I know Matt Watkins is listening. Matt Watkins, if you're listening, you want to do some film stuff, I don't know. I'll watch Kylan Hill with you, but thank you for listening. And I'll end this off with a hashtag fire Adam Gase. So thank you.